Okay, are we good? Um, okay, welcome everyone to our council meeting, Tuesday, June 3rd. We're calling the meeting to order at 6:37. I'll look to a council colleague to read our land acknowledgement. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Welcome back.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you. Now we'll just move on to some quick remarks and reminders. First of all, I just want to take a moment to reflect on the wonderful sense of community many of us experienced this past weekend during the North Grenville Pride Parade and after party. And as some of you know, colleagues who were there, I know not everyone was able to join owing to some health considerations and out-of-town travel, but for those of us who were there, it was fantastic on a gray, rainy, and cold day to see our streets filled with color and joy and support. It was a powerful demonstration of what inclusion and belonging look like in North Grenville, and it was wonderful to see all the families and residents who were watching the parade. We also had some of the kids from their Girl Guides and some of the school groups handing out pride flags and really embracing the opportunity to share the love, if you will. So quickly, I just want to recognize Diane Dewing from NG Pride, as well as Ira Lacroix from the Rainbow Youth Alliance, who represented those organizations and put a lot into the lead up. At the same time, I also want to highlight the considerable and longstanding efforts of Mel Button. She, of course, had engaged us early in ensuring that we would raise the flag here in North Grenville, and has certainly been a tireless and courageous advocate for 2S LGBTQIA plus youth and adults alike. So clearly, many of those volunteers have put heart and soul into creating a more inclusive North Grenville, and their leadership is so appreciated. And now moving on, just a couple of quick reminders. Tomorrow, Wednesday, council colleagues, you'll know that we're launching our new accessible floating dock and kayak launch at Curry Park at 6:30. And this dock, as we may recall, is in part due to a generous donation from the Rotary Club of Kemptville. Also on the horizon, as we all know, this weekend on Friday evening and Saturday morning is the much-loved Heyday Indoor Garage Sale at the Municipal Center, and yet again, an event run entirely by volunteers and organized by the KDH Auxiliary. It's something that so many residents, not just in our community, but the region, cherish, and they mark it on their calendar. And as we can see from the lineups at the door over the last few years, it's a very popular event, and it supports the auxiliary in contributing generously to our hospital. And in closing, just to put it on your radar, we've got the Father's Day car show at Riverside Park, and a very special Indigenous Peoples Day canoe sculpture unveiling on June 21st. But of course, if you really want to know what's happening, consult our community calendar. And with that, I will move on to the adoption of the agenda. At this time, I'm asking with the clerk's collaboration that item H.1, being the notice of motion for the Lear mapping, be deferred to June 11th, 2025, owing to the fact that we will have more precise mapping available at that time. At the same time, I would also like to recognize that Council is being asked to consider or accept rather a deputation from Sustainable North Grenville, courtesy of Tom Graham, respecting Bill 5, Protecting Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act. With that in mind, the agenda for the regular meeting of council on June 3rd, 2025 is proposed to be amended to include a new agenda item following item E under deputations with a deputation from Sustainable North Grenville. Further, this evening, we're asking that the agenda for the regular meeting of council on June 3rd, 2025 be also amended to move item H.2, being the notice of motion from Councillor Strachan respecting Bill 5, to occur directly following item F.1. And apart from that, if I have it right, with those proposed amendments, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of this regular meeting of council's agenda as amended. Do I have it? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Strachan. A seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any comments or questions in regards to the agenda as amended/proposed? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. So declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Colleagues, any declarations? Seeing none, we'll move on to deputations then. And I think at this time we'll be welcoming Mr. Graham to come and provide his delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nancy. Thank you, Council, for accommodating my late-breaking request to join you this evening on behalf of myself as a concerned citizen and our group, Sustainable North Grenville. We were here, you might recall, in January talking about our recommendations for helping North Grenville become a more resilient community in the face of climate change, which was a well-received presentation as it aligned with some of Council's current goals and plans. So in a way, this is a bit apropos to that, but I wear both of these hats as a concerned citizen, but also as a member of our group, Sustainable North Grenville. I wish to speak in support of the motion that you've got coming up this evening on your agenda, namely the opposition to the government's proposed overreaching Bill 5, specifically opposing all provisions that reduce environmental protections and nullify municipal planning authority. So you'll hear more about that in your motion, of course, but I wanted to speak to that because I don't get to vote on it, so I wanted to jump in with some of my comments so you can think about those things while you're deliberating it. Like thousands of Ontarians, since learning about this horrific bill, I wrote to our MPP, Steve Clark, our community is too wonderful and too precious not to do everything we can to protect, nurture, and celebrate it, I wrote to him. And this sometimes means speaking out against injustice when I see it. Your current Bill 5, Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act, and Bill 17, Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act, while obviously created to leverage the fear people have of the very real threat of tariffs from our southern trading partner, are set to allow development while risking safe drinking water, the environment, and human health, not to mention ignoring Indigenous rights. Worse than that, these new bills allow the government to dismiss the laws that do remain to facilitate development. This approach is starting to sound like the way things are going south of the border. It's anti-democratic and very short-term thinking and not in the best interests of Ontarians and Canadians. I was flattered briefly when 14 minutes later he replied, "Thanks, Tom, for your comments on these bills. All the best, Steve." As I said, I was briefly flattered. According to Environmental Defense, Bill 5 would give Premier Ford and his cabinet unprecedented power over our communities, including powers to dictate who is exempt from the law and who is not. If passed, Bill 5 would be a direct attack on healthy communities, good planning, clean water and air, species at risk, and the rights of Indigenous people, all to benefit a handful of the government's hand-picked friends. End of quote. As of today, according to a memo I got, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Ontario, QP Ontario, Eco-Justice, the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, environmental groups, the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, and many others, including Indigenous groups, have expressed their concerns and recommendations to do with the government's proposed Bill 5. This council will remember that Sustainable North Grenville was here in January. As I mentioned,
Oh, we're getting you some water. And given that we're speaking about healthy ecosystems, we're more than happy to provide
thank you.
some well-treated, wonderful water from North Grenville, if helpful.
This will do it.
Okay, fantastic. Take your time. It's perfectly okay to take a minute.
I'm in the home stretch.
You're in the home stretch.
We're
Okay.
over the hump.
Okay, sounds good.
Several of the schedules outlined in the proposed Bill 5, which I appreciate. It's very difficult to expect municipal council people to actually have read all of Bill 5. Perhaps our Director of Planning has been through it quite a bit. I expect that. So it's quite tricky. So I'm only seeing the summarized versions of these things, which sounds quite not good. Several of the schedules of the proposed Bill 5 would likely make it difficult for this council to continue on the path of pursuing its climate adaptation goals. Schedule 9, for example, would enable the Premier and Cabinet to hand out exemptions to any provincial or municipal law whatsoever. The Planning Act, Environmental Protection Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, Highway Traffic Act, and Trespass to Property Act for any purposes whatsoever. Many people find this very disturbing and are speaking out. So in conclusion, there are challenges ahead, or there may be challenges ahead, but this council has a proven track record of solving challenges. North Grenville is prudent to adopt this motion brought forward by Councillor Strachan, which has the support of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. You are wise to uphold environmental responsibility and strive to maintain the integrity of local planning processes. Sustainable North Grenville supports this motion to oppose Bill 5 in its current form. Thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions or withdraw into the crowd behind me.
Indeed. I'll look to my council colleagues for questions at this stage. Certainly, I was with my council colleagues this morning in Brockville. I understand that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is looking forward to potentially appearing at the standing committee, which is considering the bill. It's not obvious to me when this bill might be passed or what the timing is for consideration of amendments. Of course, this government won a healthy majority and clearly feel that they have the latitude and the support to proceed. Obviously, that's not to diminish the voices of opposition or concern, but I know that I haven't had the benefit of fully understanding AMO's position or where they believe that certain modifications to the bill would be, obviously meaningful at this stage. So I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look more closely at the interventions by AMO up to now. Certainly, as you're likely aware, Mayor Robin Jones from Westport is the president of AMO. So I have no doubt her and her team are navigating this process. And certainly I'm interested in where there likely is an appetite to modify the bill in its current form so that some of the areas where individuals and groups are registering the most concern can be addressed. So, Mr. Graham, I don't know if you're aware of some of those interventions where there can be modifications to the bill that would lessen some of the more severe impacts.
With your permission, Mayor Nancy, I would respond with AMO has a position paper. It's 5 pages long. I believe some of you have copies of that, which has language in it that proposes how they might go about making those changes, pointing out the negative effects of the bill as it currently stands. As a citizen, what's crazy to me is how, and it was on CBC yesterday, where the minister was saying, we're looking forward to passing this bill and then getting on with some consultation about it. And I'm like, okay, but you're kind of missing the point, because the way it stands currently, it does not include that consultation. So basically, yes, as you say, they have the majority, so they have the latitude, if not they may say the mandate, but the point is that if it's, now that they're having the benefit of this, the voices that are coming out against that, one of the easiest things to do is say, well, hold on, why don't we just reset here and start from, okay, tell us again where we missed it. Because as your motion says, we support the construction of affordable housing, and we want development, we want to take all this action, but we want to do it without giving up the environmental protection that we have, and we don't want to give up our planning policies. We want to be empowered as a municipality to use the tools we have in a democratic fashion. I think it's an easy pause and reset. And the groups that I mentioned, there's lots of environmental groups, but when you get people like the Registered Nurses of Ontario and the professional engineers, and people know about planning and things like that, these are not fringe groups. These are people who understand that democracy is a threat. So a little bit of a reset would be an easy thing, and there's language that you'll be able to refer to the language that AMO is using.
Certainly, and when we speak about the motion that Councillor Strachian has proposed, I will, at that point, suggest that perhaps we integrate some of the reflections and interventions by AMO, and I do see the submission that they have made in regards to balancing some of the Government of Ontario's interests and the concerns, clear concerns about some of the provisions in the current bill.
If I may finally, is that the motion that Councillor Strachian has put forward, the wording is almost verbatim from AMO. I think it's fair to say that that wording, that language, that proposed motion came from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, unless I'm completely mistaken on that.
Well, certainly we can ask Councillor Strachian. I'm not sure it fully aligns, but again, I haven't had the benefit of reading all of AMO's submissions to date, but certainly perhaps that's the case. Councillor Strachian, is there any comment you wish to make at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, I don't. I think we can deliberate it amongst council when we get to that. I think the point to be made is that there's slight differences in wording, and we can nuance it, we can, soften it. I think the wording from AMO is maybe a little bit softer than what the notice of motion has in it. I think the points that Mr. Graham's making, though, are about environmental protection and ensuring municipalities still have a say in how their communities are planned out, and that this doesn't become a heavy-handed approach from the province. So, we have AMOs in front of us. I think all of council received that. That we can certainly work with, and friendly amendments that still align with the intent of voicing concern would make sense to me. Thank you.
So thank you. So going back to Mr. Graham's delegation, is there anything else from Mr. Graham? It certainly would be helpful for me to better understand the breadth and depth of groups that have spoken out against the bill, and I don't know if that's readily available on a particular website. I don't know if anyone's in particular is leading the charge in terms of asking for that robust consultation, because I hear you. It sounds like a very diverse array of organizations have been clear, and certainly sometimes we've seen this from governments that they introduce legislation that certainly does not meet in any way with the satisfaction of, I think, public sentiment. So obviously we hope that there is an appetite to certainly modify some of the intentions here. But can I ask you, is there a particular website that you've been monitoring, which lists or features all the groups that have expressed their concerns?
Wouldn't it be nice
Okay.
if there was, but the trouble is, if somebody pretends to speak on behalf of many groups, the minute you identify the group that's speaking on behalf of all the many groups, you think, okay, well, they have their own agenda. What's interesting to me is that, it doesn't matter whether you've got the diversity of the groups themselves, and you can go and look for their own statements on those things, and unfortunately, it takes time. But then you're not getting the parsification of the, you're not getting the summarization or the slant put on these different people's things. They're speaking with remarkably unanimous voices, most of which has to do with democracy. Let's just stop that. Now, whether it's, whether we want development or not, it's like the fact that these things are, and we're not a northern mining town where the economic zones are going to have the greatest impact. And the power taken away from the Indigenous groups who ought to be speaking in that, the power taken away from them. We're not in that situation right here in North Grenville. But it's like, if we don't speak up about this, where would it stop? There's no indication that this would stop there. So I don't have the answer to that other than, well, you can look at any of the ones that I mentioned in what I handed out, and you can look and find. It's very, very, very easy to find any of these groups, and AMO would know as well if you just tried to funnel back through your municipal association. I'm sure they'd be able to give you a distilled version. And then at least you'd have the perspective of the Association of Municipalities. I'm sorry, that's not a better answer.
No, that's great. I just didn't understand to what extent the concerns that are being expressed were sort of being documented in a singular place. But
Safe to say, everybody's not happy.
indeed, okay. I'm certainly aware that this has been fairly disruptive, and there's certainly a strong appetite to see significant modifications, if not the retraction of the bill. So thank you for being here and allowing us to better appreciate your perspective. I'm just going to ask council colleagues, anything else at this stage? Yes, Councillor Strachan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, when we move to the council's discussion on this, I can perhaps highlight some of the areas where there are letters of large number of organizations, conservation authorities position, Conservation Ontario, and so on, because there have been statements put out there by communities. And I know that there are also motions from various municipalities that perhaps we haven't yet seen, but they are out there as well. And similar to what Mr. Graham has pointed out, they're effectively saying the same thing, slightly different language, but they're all pointing in the same direction.
Okay, thank you. So the motion then this evening is that council accept the deputation from Sustainable North Grenville by Tom Graham respecting Bill 5, Protecting Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act 2025 for information. So I assume, Councillor Strachan, you want to move that, and a seconder, please? Seconder to receive the deputation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, all right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So with that, colleagues, given the recent modification to the agenda, we will be looking at addressing, if I'm not mistaken, the substance of Councillor Strachan's recommendation, notice of motion, I apologize. And I think we have the notice of motion before us. So at this stage, I just welcome comments. Perhaps it would be most practical to move consideration of the motion. I do have hopefully what will be considered a friendly amendment. But at this stage, procedurally, Ms. Remming, what's your advice? Should I move to get the notice of motion on the agenda as is and then work towards consideration of friendly amendments?
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. So in this case, the notice of motion is already on the agenda. Nothing's been moved or passed. So if you would like, yourself or Councillor Strachan can essentially introduce the notice of motion, and council can move into deliberation before they decide to move or second the motion.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. So with that in mind, why don't we just welcome comments on the notice of motion as presented? Councillor Strachan, are there other things you wish to add at this stage?
I suppose I can add a bit more information here based on the research that I have. I reached out to the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority to find out where CAs were positioning, and Conservation Ontario has put out a combined letter from various conservation authorities stating some of their concerns, and specifically to focus on not to ensuring that there's development within these special economic zones that still adheres to natural hazard standards and safeguards. And so I think that's the overriding concern, is that the bill as it stands right now does not adequately state those protections. And so that was a very quick summary, but they have a letter that will be public very soon that's going to Minister of Environment and Conservation Protection, MECP. The one location for a letter isn't easy to find. However, there is one that was sent to the Honourable Todd McCarthy at MECP with over 100 organizations, and the organizations vary from Ontario Nature to Canadian Wildlife Federation to other local groups throughout Ontario, David Suzuki Foundation. It's quite an extensive list. And so they've come together separate from conservation authorities to state the concerns similar to what Mr. Graham has pointed out, where developers would be granted special exemptions that would override any existing protections, and the concerns around the reduction in environmental regulations or what assessments would be required for those zones, and eliminating some of the mandatory protections, the concern of the Indigenous people's rights to free, prior, and informed consent isn't mentioned in the bill. So I think that there's the concern isn't that a bill could go forward with these with some of this intention there, but it's what's missing from the bill that is being flagged by many of the different organizations in the letters and so on that I have come across on this topic. The notice of motion that I put forward last week, does have stronger language, like opposing all provisions. If we wanted to align with what AMO has put out, which doesn't speak to as strongly worded language, that would equally make sense. I think the point is what AMO is making is we want to make sure that municipalities aren't overrun, that there's municipal consultation in any of these changes to special economic zones, and that there's a partnership there, and that some of these other areas that I've already mentioned be included in the bill going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. And perhaps with that in mind, certainly I would like to propose that we would include in the motion that we urge robust consultation on Bill 5 as per the interventions of AMO as another component of this motion, because certainly it's obvious that the heavy amount of engagement in Bill 5, and to Mr. Graham's point, the fact that so many organizations are vested in the outcome of this bill certainly suggests that a robust consultation process would be exceedingly valuable. So if I could introduce that as a third element of the motion that's currently here, that would be appreciated. Councillor Strachan?
Yes, through you to you, Madam Mayor, or to the rest of council. I think the 3 points that AMO, just to ensure that we're on the same page, that I've seen as their summary, that their submission outlines the importance of ensuring that the use of special economic zones to override local bylaws should only occur with the host municipal support and in cases of extraordinary need, ensuring continued protection for the environment, including species at risk and natural habitats, and the critical critical opportunity for Ontario to demonstrate its commitment to reconciliation and stronger relationships with Indigenous rights holders. And I think that that outlines well the overall concerns that I'm hearing across the other organizations as well. So I'd be supportive of that change.
Excellent. So then just in terms of the language of the motion, speaking to those three salient points from AMO, is that they would be embedded into this notice of motion, or rather into the motion itself. So perhaps with that, I'm just looking at the motion itself. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville highlight AMO's concerns in regards to the three areas as a preamble to the rest of the motion that you've proposed. Does that make sense? Councillor Strakian?
I think so. The order of this, I think is probably fine looking at what I have there and adding those ones in there. I think that making sure that it's covered makes a lot of sense. I think Deputy Mayor may have something else that he wants to add at this point too. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for Councillor Strakian, and then I've got a suggested language for an amendment I'd like to see. Okay. Hopefully it's friendly. Timing. This has come to us pretty quickly, and we're dealing with a rather lengthy, a lot of language in this resolution. What is the urgency in terms of getting something to the government? What's the timeline? And perhaps Councillor Strakian or Mr. Graham could answer that question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the provincial legislature does have a summer break. And so there's concern that should this be advanced at the provincial level prior to that break, that there would be no opportunity then for any further input, that they could move quicker. We don't know. I don't think anything that we're saying here really flies in the face of anything other than to say we want to ensure protections are still maintained and that AMO is already taking the action on behalf of municipalities to continue with this this kind of engagement with the province. So if you feel it's too rushed, that's absolutely your prerogative. The intention of bringing it up last week was that there would be time to do a bit of research and read some of the information that's out there. But I understand your position. But it is because of the summer break. Yeah.
The thrust of my question is just having a little more time rather than cobbling it together tonight. I have a suggested amendment, and the mayor's already made some suggestions. And you know, once we get into wordsmithing at that granular level, you know from experience we could be here for a long time. But yes. if you're not open to deferring it, then I'll go forward with a suggested language that hopefully will be a friendly amendment.
Again, and it's not obvious to me what the timing is at this stage of the game, so I don't, it's not clear. I don't have any insight into timing. So I don't know how much time we would have.
I believe, Madam Mayor, that all of the organizations that have put out statements right now are quite concerned that the provincial government will move quicker with this and then break for the summer. And it poses challenges there. So being able to make a statement prior to this advancing at the provincial level would have an impact as opposed to saying it after the fact, and it's a fait accompli.
Okay, if that's the case, then I'll go forward with my concerns and how it might be addressed in the motion. Acknowledging the environmental impact and the ignoring Indigenous rights, for me, what your motion doesn't strike hard enough is the lack of municipal autonomy, a lack of local deliberation or consultation, and the constraints placed on revenue that we can generate as a municipality, which speaks to our fiscal sustainability. And I know Sustainable North Grenville, environmental sustainability is one of the 3 pillars that they have in terms of what they're concerned about. So I'm going to read some language and we'll see how far it gets. So whereas special economic zones would allow the province to unilaterally override municipal decision-making by exempting special economic zones from municipal bylaws, and that the use of special economic zones to bypass local deliberation on proposed projects may not deliver on the promise of supporting economic growth, I would urge, and maybe this is part of point 3 or point 4, we would urge the province that special economic zones should not be used to exempt projects from bylaws that impact municipal revenue, including development charge bylaws, property tax bylaws, or fees and charges bylaws. So that's the language I would like to see included, if you're amenable.
Councillor Strachan?
Through Madam Mayor to the rest of council, I think your language is more specific than AMO's. AMO's leaves it broader to simply state that special economic zones to override local bylaws should only occur with the host municipal support, and that could cover a broad range, probably longer list than what you've stated. If we want to focus in on those areas, I mean, I don't think that there's a particular concern with that. The AMO wording, I think, does allow for a broader conversation to take place. So that's my perspective on your suggested wording.
Of course, without the benefit of seeing the wording, it's hard for me to fully reconcile the language that Amos proposed versus your more specific language. So are you open, Deputy Mayor, to incorporating the AMO language, which again is they're recommending to the province to ensure that the use of special economic zones to override local bylaws should only occur with host municipal support, and in cases of extraordinary need, ensure continued protection for the environment, including species at risk and natural habitats, and the critical opportunity for Ontarians to demonstrate its commitment to reconciliation and stronger relationships with Indigenous rights holders. Does that align with your proposed amendment, or are you looking to go beyond the AMO language?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point of information, that language that I read is from page 2 of their submission. It's highlighted in
Sure.
yellow
So
here.
it's just a
it's not my
further-
language, it's AMO's language.
Understood. So it's just a further elaboration of those 3 points.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
felt that with respect, Councillor Strachan's motion wasn't hitting that bell loud enough, and for me, that's a concern.
Okay, so then I think what we have, Councillor Strachan, do you want to speak before we try to distill all of this?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Barclay. I don't disagree with you that adding the AMO pieces into the motion would expand that. I'm only speaking to the suggestion that you made, that it's maybe more specific than we need to at this stage, and that the AMO higher level approach would allow for a broader conversation. So I think we're saying the same thing. Yours is more specific in the AMO language rather than taking the higher level, broader perspective that they've also presented.
So with this in mind, maybe we can sort of come towards a decision. So certainly at this stage, what I'm hearing is the following. I had initially suggested that we include in the resolution that we urge the province to engage in robust consultation on Bill 5. Additionally, we've now suggested in the motion that we include the 3 major suggestions from AMO as per what I just read. And in addition, I'm hearing that Deputy Mayor wants to provide more specificity in terms of the ways in which we protect municipalities from their jurisdiction, if you will, when it comes to certain powers to protect, obviously, the environment, endangered species, what have you. So if we bring all of those pieces together into one motion, and I appreciate our clerk, it will have to likely, not necessarily at this moment, but if you accept the spirit of the suggestions we've made this evening, Ms. Reming, I think we'd be comfortable at least moving and seconding the motion without seeing it in its complete form, trusting that you'll be able to document it all for the minutes of this meeting. And if we proceed just to consider the various amendments that have been put on the table, maybe that would be the most practical way to proceed. Yes, go ahead.
Given the length of the motion, Madam Mayor, I am inclined to agree. If council colleagues don't mind me reaching out to them just to make sure that I wordsmith it correctly, using the wording of all aspects of this motion, then I am happy to follow your lead on this.
Excellent. I think it'll likely save some time, among other things. Deputy Mayor.
I'm happy to provide the
Yes.
clerk with this.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. So with that and with the other amendments we've now discussed, maybe I could look for a mover and a seconder for a modified motion? Just one sec. Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to confirm, the original notice of motion would remain with the addition of the points from the AMO statements, the broader statements, as well as the more specific statements that the Deputy Mayor has reflected.
And with what I've noted, which initially, which was to urge robust consultation on Bill 5.
And to
Yes.
urge robust consultation. Yes, I will move that. Thank you.
Great. So do I have a seconder? Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay.
Well, just a comment. It's up to Councillor Strachan to consider my amendment friendly or not. So she, at her discretion, she can say it's
I
not.
believe she said it's friendly.
I did move it. I didn't growl, so we're good.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
No need
Thank
to,
goodness, I don't need that.
no need to have to re-seek confirmation on that. I think we're in a good place. So with that in mind, we have a motion on the table. Any last comments? Seeing no comments, I would like to call the vote, and I appreciate the work of the clerk post this meeting and obviously into tomorrow to sort of capture all of the good language that's been included here. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, it carries. Thank you. And thank you, of course, Mr. Graham, for highlighting your particular concerns. Much appreciated. So with that, colleagues, we are moving on. I'm going to move us back up to the agenda, and we are going to reports. And of course, we do have a downtown Kemptville parking study update. This is in regards to accessible and commercial loading spots. So Ms. Jeannot is here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford, and good evening, Council. Tonight, I will be providing an update on the downtown Kemptville parking study, particularly with regards to accessible and commercial loading zones. Next slide, please. So staff have been working on implementing the parking study recommendation since Council adopted the study near the end of 2023. Of note, the study had recommended investigating accessible or age-friendly parking spaces, and Council had directed staff to focus on accessible spaces. The attached progress report, which was on the agenda, also provides some updates on other items, including that we are moving forward with installing a sign at Riverside Park, which informs people of the short distance to downtown businesses, and installing signs that detail the 3-hour free parking, and they also have some fun facts on them about our community. Next slide, please. So staff had conducted a survey of downtown businesses regarding commercial loading spaces. Only 2 businesses responded, and both indicated they are satisfied with their current arrangements. So at this time, staff are not moving forward with adding commercial loading zones. Next slide, please. Working with United Counties and Municipal Public Works staff, 2 spots have been identified to transition to accessible spaces. These spots will be signed and painted accordingly and the sidewalk depressed to accommodate side entry vehicles. These spots were chosen due to their centrality to a variety of downtown businesses and their ability to accommodate rear entry vehicles. Of note, as we were reviewing the Rubin Street location, so in your second picture there, we noticed that there was only one 15-minute parking sign for these 7 spaces, and that's in front of the spot right in front of the post office. We had a quick chat with the BIA, who indicated they would prefer that only the first spot be 15-minute and that the rest be signed as 3-hour parking spaces. Staff will be moving ahead with this update as we install the 3-hour parking signs in the rest of downtown. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Jeannot. Are there no accessible parking spaces for Prescott Street?
Through your worship, so we had looked at a spot on Prescott Street, but we thought that the spot on Rubin was actually better suited to allow for more space, and as well it's more centrally located to businesses all along Prescott rather than right in front of one section of businesses.
Okay, I feel that that's a long stretch of sidewalk for people who have a disability, if they're in a walker or a wheelchair, if they're going to, say, Connie Lamble's office, for example. That is a very long way to have to go to walk to get to a business. I think we need to have one on Prescott Street. I realize that the Accessibility Committee has not met for some time, but I would suggest that this go to the Accessibility Committee before it goes further, because I don't think that's enough. And I don't think it's enough up on Prescott Street. What percentage should we have ideally of accessible parking spots out of the total that we have on street parking in the downtown?
Through your worship, there's no dictated amount, and I'd look to our director of planning if she has anything to add to that with regards to on-street parking that I am aware of. But I'll turn over to Amy Martin in case she has anything to add.
Thank you, Director Janot, through your worship, to Councillor Sullivan. The only requirements for accessible parking ratios are when we have development applications, where typically it's like a commercial development. It's on site for the specific property. We don't have any provisions within the zoning bylaw that would speak to on-street parking because it's part of the public domain. So at this point, it's more so at the discretion of when we do these studies to look at where there might be appropriate locations to include accessible parking provisions. Other factors you would want to consider as well are dimensions of parking to ensure that when you are creating an accessible space, you are creating a space that is large enough to accommodate that vehicle, including the loading area associated with that vehicle for people to get in and out of as well. So in summary, we have provisions for private properties, but in the zoning bylaw, but not for on-street parking.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you for the explanation. I still firmly believe that we need to have at least one accessible parking spot along Prescott Street. There's other places of business. There's a health hub there. People may be requiring to go to the health hub, or there's hair salons. There's a lot of other businesses up there. The Heritage Hub, all sorts of things on Prescott Street, and no accessible parking places. I think we need to look at that a little closer and see what we can do, and perhaps take this to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Their next meeting is July the 9th.
So Lisa, we'll look to Ms. Janot, and then I also have a proposal. Go ahead, Ms. Janot.
Through your worship, I can say that the one of the other spots we did consider was the last spot in front of Catherine Fitt. That's kind of at the end of a few parking spaces. So that was another one that we did look at on Prescott Street, but just felt it was quite confined. And it did back onto a private laneway, which we have had issues with in the recent past. And again, just due to the centrality to the overall Prescott Street businesses, we felt that the Rubin Street was the better option.
So might I suggest that we move consideration of the report today, and also ask Ms. Janot that you potentially look at a third space over the next little while, and perhaps have that discussion with the Accessibility Committee that at least gets us moving on the establishment of two spots. And perhaps there's a third. I know, having met with the BIA very recently, they're extremely concerned about the loss of some of the parking in downtown. These spots don't represent a loss, of course. They're certainly not. But I think any modifications we make to downtown parking also require a conversation with the BIA. My understanding is for these two spots, that conversation's been had. But of course, if there was a third one, I'm sure that in addition to conversation with the Accessibility Committee, consulting with the BIA would be valuable, as you've done in the past. So perhaps, Councillor Sullivan, we could move consideration of the recommendation, but also direct Ms. Janot to engage in further discussions with the Accessibility Committee and the BIA. Yes, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you, Your Worship. May I ask for an additional consideration? And if that is possible on the floor, that you're moving the recommendation, having it go to accessibility, but also maybe for bylaw to provide some monitoring of legal use of the two sites once they're established, which may also provide the Accessibility Advisory Committee as well as council and the BIA its use, how often they're used, et cetera, which may feed the outcome of the third potential spot.
You're suggesting that, well, our bylaw department would naturally be monitoring those signs, but providing some feedback for the uptake on those first two spots? Yes. Okay. Councillor Trackin?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. To the CAO's point, I have a few questions, but to the CAO's point, I think it is challenging to make a decision based on how often it's used. Legal use is one aspect of it, but how many folks are using it to make a case against having or not having one in a different location. I think that's a bit of a challenging one. Certainly, I think having that information would be useful. Having participated in those discussions at the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I know that they're keen to see additional spots, and we're looking to staff to provide those recommendations, the BIA to provide recommendations. Personally, I like those two spots in particular. I think they're very good spots. They're in areas where it's quite busy, and I wouldn't want to see a delay in those two spots going forward. So I would like to see this going forward, but definitely that the advisory committee should weigh in about their additional concerns that they may have. And if I may ask the additional questions that I have. It mentions in one of the slides that 2 business responses both satisfied with current arrangements. Does that mean no other businesses commented on these spots or had anything to say? Was the BIA involved in soliciting responses from businesses? So they didn't care. Only 2 cared, and they were fine with it. Okay. The comment that you made about the first spot being 15 minutes only, is the first spot that spot that was highlighted as the accessible one, or first spot is further down the road?
Through your worship, so yes, you're correct. I should have included a wider photo, but the one in the red there is the one we're suggesting as the accessibility spot, and the only one that is currently signed is on the opposite end, right in front of the post office.
And they want to keep that one currently signed as 15 minutes?
Correct. So it's one of the signs that just says 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have arrows or anything. So when we were looking at it, I parked there and I said, I don't know if I can park for 15 minutes in the spaces behind here or 3 hours. And so that's where that conversation came up.
Okay, so the accessible one would, under new signage, fall under the 3-hour rule. Okay, thank you very much. That question was answered. Just out of curiosity, and I'm not sure if this applies or not, is because where there are spots dedicated as accessible parking, are there additional maintenance beyond changing the layout of the sidewalk and so on to make them accessible? Is there a higher level of maintenance standard that's required for those spots going forward?
Through you, your worship, not that I'm aware of that Public Works has raised. We will, as I mentioned, sign and paint them as regular. We paint other parking spots and depress the curb, but other than that, we're not aware of any other standards that have to be met.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add a comment that I'm very pleased that we're going to have these 2 spots, and I agree that they are in good locations for Rubin Crescent and for on Clothier Street. I just really feel that there needs to be one on Prescott Street in addition to those 2. And I also wondered, was the BIA asked for comments about these 2 accessible spots, and did they not have any comments about, or did any of the businesses have any comments about accessible parking for further on Prescott? Were they included? Was there a survey to them as well about the accessible parking and the commercial loading?
Through your worship, the survey was only about the commercial loading, but we had conversations with the BIA and some of their representatives about the accessible spaces. They didn't we originally proposed the two spaces, the one on Prescott and the one on Clothier, and they didn't have any issues with those. And then when we suggested the Reuben instead of the Prescott, they also said they didn't have any issues with that.
Okay, I wonder if we could survey all the businesses in the BIA on their feeling about the accessible parking spots, and should there be one on Prescott Street as well?
Certainly, I'm
But
sure
I don't want to delay
No, I don't.
going on with those two spots at least, for sure, but I'd like to see another one.
So I think, again, as per my earlier intervention, I think we can consider tonight's recommendation that council receive the downtown Kemptville parking study progress report attached to staff report CS 2025-06 for information purposes, that the adoption of that recommendation, as I understand it, then gives Maginot and the municipality the leeway to establish those two accessible spots, while at the same time, council, we could consider adding to that motion at this time that council also direct Maginot to explore the establishment of a third space after some dialogue with the BIA, some early monitoring of the usage of the two spots in order to explore what may be possible. And I should note, Ms. Remming, not just in conversation with the BIA, but after some conversation at the Accessibility Advisory Committee was the other entity that I think was hoping to have a bit of a discussion here. So if we can add those provisions to the recommendation, I think that gives Ms. Janot the direction to see what else is possible. Ms. Janot?
Through your worship, and if you could just clarify, is the expectation for us to report back to council after having done this consultation? Yes. Currently, the bylaw doesn't require council approval. All signage is put up by the Director of Public Works, but we can certainly report back if that's your desire.
In terms of a third spot, I think that would make sense. Thank you. And I know Ms. Remming has been diligently writing. Do you want to take one last crack at reading that, just so that we have all of it in one place?
Absolutely. So please let me know if I've captured this correctly. So the motion is now as amended that council receive the downtown Kemptville parking study progress report attached to the staff report CS 2025-006 for information purposes, and that council directs staff to engage in further discussions with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Business Improvement Area for a third accessible parking space and to report back to council.
Great. Does that capture everyone's intentions? Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, that third spot be on Prescott Street, please. Could that be added?
Just a reference to a third spot potentially on Prescott Street.
Thank you.
Perfect. So with that in mind, I'll look to council colleagues for any other questions or comments. Not seeing any, so I'll look for it. I don't think we've moved this yet, so a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan and a seconder, Councillor Strachian. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, great. That carries. So the now we'll move to the EDI update to naming policy. That's Maginot as well.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So the second report reviews an update to the naming of corporate assets policy. Next slide, please, Mary. In 2023, Council adopted the EDI strategy, which includes actions related to reviewing and updating policies to align with EDI values. As a first step, the EDI Advisory Committee reviewed a few municipal policies and created a matrix that staff can use to evaluate new policies or policies being updated from an EDI lens. This matrix is currently being tested by staff for the next few months. The committee identified the naming of corporate assets policy as one to review and provided some suggestions for updating. The policy was also reviewed by the Indigenous Advisory Circle. I have included a document that shows the track changes as part of the report package, and it easily shows council how it was altered. And it's also important to note that typically new road names as part of the developments are not captured in this policy. We have had some discussions with planning staff about how names that reflect EDI values or honor Anishinaabe culture and reconciliation can be incorporated, such as the committees providing a name bank that developers can use. Next slide, please. So tonight's recommendation, in short, here is to repeal the former bylaw and to enact the new bylaw and policy which incorporates these updates. And I am happy to take any questions.
So colleagues, in the attachments, you can see the track changes where the EDI committee made specific proposals to modify the naming policy. And of course, this evening, I think we're just being asked to repeal the existing bylaw and adopt the new bylaw, which would certainly direct the municipality to be more thoughtful in terms of how they work with private sector entities, developers, and of course, within our own staff to ensure better consideration of EDI values and practices. Any thoughts at this stage before we consider the motion? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Chenot. I'm just wondering, would this apply to properties that are within North Grenville but not owned by North Grenville? For example, any trails that were going to be built in the campus, any new trails in the campus, for example?
Through your worship, so this is only for assets owned by the corporation. So at this time, I do not believe the Kempville campus trails would fall under that policy, but I think they would definitely be open to conversations once we maybe make them aware of this policy in case they're interested in leaning on it as well.
Certainly, at this time, as it reads in the bylaw itself, it speaks to corporate assets, including parks, open spaces, facilities, streets, roads, and other municipal buildings or property. The final decision for naming of corporate assets will rest with council. With that in mind, are there any other questions in regards to the proposed changes to the policy? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out what I consider like an inconsistency, and I don't know how it can be resolved, but I would look to Ms. Chenot to take a stab at it, maybe. And I'm looking at paragraph 9, in which the first phrase is, existing names will not be changed without consideration of the historical significance of the existing name. And the new addition, each application will be considered on a case-by-case basis when the views or actions of the individual after whom a municipal asset is named no longer reflect the municipality's current community values of equity and inclusion. And I think I have no issue with the municipality's current values of equity and inclusion. I don't want that to be misconstrued, but if we're talking about not changing something without consideration of the historical significance, well, certainly history has shown us that there's a lot of people who did not subscribe to the current values of equity and inclusion. So how do we parse that addition, or should it be removed?
Through your worship, you're talking about paragraph 9?
That's correct.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
thought you said paragraph 5 for a second. So I think what we're trying to get at here is if we find, perhaps there's a name in the community at the group level, we couldn't think of one off the top of our heads, that was reflecting a person or named after a person who, their past has to come to light and is now no longer aligned with our values, that we could consider changing that name. Does that get at what you were asking?
Yeah, I think, our history, as we know, is not that pretty in certain respects, but it's history nonetheless. And if we're now saying that, I guess it's reviewed on a case-by-case basis, I guess that's your out. But I can't see us removing something that has historical significance just because it doesn't align with current values of equity and inclusion. And again, I'm not saying that we should get rid of our current values, but I think sometimes bad history is as instructive as current, current actions by individuals.
Well, certainly, and I will recognize Councillor Strachan, and there are many different approaches to addressing historical names that, after much reflection and education, may no longer align with community values. So certainly there's been many different approaches. My question is, any name change would come to council for approval, is that correct? So the mechanism remains with council? Okay. Councillor Stracan?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. And I understand where the Deputy Mayor is going with his statement, what he was intending on saying. And I think that the wording here allows for the conversation to take place and to insist on the conversation and, engagement with the Indigenous Advisory Circle and the EDIAC to take place. And that, that conversation could go down the path to say even somebody with a bad history by current standards, the name could remain there, and perhaps that there's an avenue that can be taken as, to educate and inform rather than removing the name. But it can also be made very clear that the history is bad enough that it should be removed entirely. So, I think that the way it's written right now, the way I see it, is that it allows and ensures that the conversation takes place, which isn't currently embedded within this policy.
And just to clarify, I know that the trails on the campus are, just to be clear, ultimately the campus is a municipal asset. So those trails are regarded as a municipal asset, are they not? Did I understand your answer, Ms. Jeannot?
Through your worship, I'd look to CAO Dunlop. I thought my answer is correct, but I could be wrong.
They are a municipal asset, but operational control is put over by a governing board. So we do not name those specific assets. Typically, they would come for collaboration, but we don't have the responsibility, as I understand it, for naming those assets.
Perhaps we haven't really named a new asset since the college was acquired by the municipality. So I think there might be some complexity there moving forward. I'm not sure if it's an operational issue or a municipal issue fundamentally, but certainly something to be addressed as we move into the future. But the day-to-day operations are campus-led, but certainly we can clarify. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, if I understand it correctly, the municipality is responsible for managing the trails, the recreation trails in the campus, and we have named 2 trails within, they were named actually 2022, around the time of the International Plowing Match. They were named, I had hoped and put forward a desire that they would be perhaps given Indigenous names, but that didn't happen, and so they were named for clarity so that people who were using the trails at the time of the International Plowing Match would know where they were, and it was easy to identify on the map where they were. So 2 trails have been named.
Thank you for that reminder. And your understanding is they were named by the campus or the municipality at that time? The municipality. Okay. So perhaps this naming policy will help guide future deliberations in that respect. Thank you for that reminder. So I had forgotten. With that, any other comments, colleagues, in regards to this particular policy? I know the EDI committee has been enthusiastic to take a look at some of municipal policies writ large and sort of really zeroed in on this one as an example of where EDI could be better applied to some municipal discernment and decision-making. So it's good to see it come forward, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I would look for a mover and seconder at this time to have consideration of the motion. Thank you, Councillor Stracan and Deputy Mayor. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just to the last comment from Councillor O'Sullivan, in the opening paragraph under purpose, trails aren't specifically named. Maybe we could just, after streets, include trails, if that's something worthwhile.
For sure. So, Ms. Dunlop, we regard trails as assets, right, when they're municipally owned? So you're suggesting that we just include the word trails in reference to all of our municipal assets, correct?
The naming of any corporate assets, including parks, open spaces, facilities,
Right.
streets, roads. I'm just
Right.
asking to
Sure.
include trails.
Councillor Stracan? This is under the initial paragraph of the policy, the purpose. Yes, Councillor Strachan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, under paragraph 2, subpara E2, there is language there that could be, trails could be included, although not explicitly, but the municipality will not rename ravines, woodlands, and other ecological features. And so it does, allow for other ecological features to include trails, perhaps. So I think it's there, it's not explicit. So, if we wanted to pull that one out, I think it would align with what's already embedded in one of the other paragraphs.
With that being said, there's no harm including the word trails under purpose if we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was getting at, is that it's already there, it's just not drawn
Explicit.
out, so it wouldn't go in, it wouldn't be in direct
contradiction.
conflict with any, or in
Right.
contravention with anything.
Okay. So then, as I understand it, this motion will direct the inclusion of the word trail in addition to all of the other proposed amendments. Trails, should have said. So we have a mover and a seconder. I think I'm going to call the question. All in favor, please? Thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to move on. I think there's a good chance we might be able to get through our meeting in short order. So I think we're now moving. Is it Ms. Reming, you'll provide the quick update on the closed meeting investigator recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to confirm, this will be quick. The report was relatively comprehensive at 6 pages long, but in a nutshell, this is just an update following the implementations of the recommendations that were accepted from the closed meeting investigator on March 3rd of 2025. So the report details how each recommendation has been implemented and any remaining work that needs to be done, which is very minimal, just essentially some touching up on the website. So this was presented to council for information purposes. However, Mr. Rick O'Connor, who council will recall actually performed our training on April 29th, suggested that council also consider adding his PowerPoint presentation to our new accountability and transparency webpage, as well as suggested that not only that we report back to Mr. John Mascarin, our closed meeting investigator, but also that I provide an update on the comprehensive training on the open meeting rule that was conducted. So that is encapsulated in the recommendation, just for accuracy as per Mr. O'Connor's recommendation. So if council would like to consider the recommendation for them, I would sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, we'd like to thank the clerk's office as well as all of council for participating in some recent training, which was obviously quite instructive. And Mr. O'Connor has a long history with the City of Ottawa and had lots to share. So it was a very fulsome day, and the other efforts of the clerk's office in terms of the transparency and accountability page are much appreciated. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder in regards to these recommendations as presented by the clerk's office. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, go ahead. Sorry, I took your hand as a seconder. If you would like someone else to second, then I can acknowledge your question, or you can second and ask the question.
Okay, I will second and
Okay,
ask.
go ahead.
It's just a couple of typos that I noticed in here, and one was on, under financial implications, it says experienced third party within 60, but then it says 6 days. And I saw another one, but now I can't find it.
If there's any grammatical adjustments, I'm sure you have the discretion to make it after the fact. So
Okay, thank
certainly,
you. I
you
will
can apprise
second
the
it.
clerk's
Yeah,
office.
thank you.
Obviously, accuracy is important, so we appreciate that, but I'm sure that we can make any of those adjustments after the fact. At this stage, I think it's obviously just important to highlight to the community that obviously we take the recommendation seriously and have done our absolute best as an organization and as a council to respond to the recommendations rather quickly. So appreciate the efforts to outline that this evening. So I have a mover and a seconder. Are there any other questions at this stage of the game? I'm not seeing any, so I'll ask to call the vote, please. All in favor? All right, that carries. Thank you very much. So next we'll move on to the Kemptville Campus MOU. It's the extension agreement. For context, I know that the CAO has been working diligently on a renewed MOU, but it's complex. It's taken a lot of time. Certainly the chair of the board at the campus, as well as myself, had a recent opportunity to sit down and better understand where both the municipality and campus would like things, or how they would like things to evolve collectively. So the report this evening is that we give both entities, both the municipality and the campus, a little more time to bring a MOU to council this fall, which would, I think, better capture and articulate an MOU that I think both organizations would be enthusiastic about endorsing. So with that, Ms. Dunlap, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the question. No, the ED for the campus and I meet on a regular basis and want to make sure that this is a comprehensive but clear document. So I appreciate the council's consideration of the extension.
All right, so if there are no questions at this stage, I'll look for a mover and a seconder in regards to the extension to the existing MOU. Mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor. And a seconder, thank you, Councillor Wilson. And I apologize, I was just looking for the recommendation. That is that council authorizes the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the extension agreement regarding the MOU between the municipality of North Grenville and the Kemptville Campus Education and Community Center to extend the current MOU to October 31, 2025, or until a new agreement is executed, whichever is earlier. So, motion's on the table. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And with that, we've already, under Section G, addressed Councillor Strachan's notice of motion. Council colleagues, as you would have noted, in the approval of our agenda, I asked for deferral of our land evaluation and area review discussion until next week because some of the proposals that are likely to be brought forward are still in play. So I need a little more time to work with county council, not county council, county's planning staff and some other relevant planning officials so that I can be precise in what I would be proposing to you next week. So that's not a discussion for this evening, but look forward to it next week. And with that, we're moving to H. I don't believe we have any miscellaneous or unfinished business. Ms. Remming, we just have 2 members of our community here. We thank them for being here. Thank you very much for coming. Much appreciated. Do either of you have questions this evening? No, other than how do we keep the beautiful sun around a little bit longer, given very cool temps? So we'll answer that question certainly after the meeting and beyond. But moving to our confirmatory bylaw, be it resolved that bylaw 5225 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on June 3rd, 2025 be adopted and passed. I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan, Deputy Mayor. And I will call the vote. All in favor? And then I'll look for adjournment. And that is that this regular meeting of council adjourned at 7:55 p.m. Councillor Strachan, Councillor Wilson, thank you so much. And I'll call the question. All in favor? All right. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.